Imagine losing everything: your family, your job, your home. That's what happened to Jack, a former Marine who had been living without hope on the streets of New York, until an unexpected encounter changed his destiny forever. What happens next will leave you speechless. The streets of New York shimmered under the glow of streetlights, while the evening traffic created a constant backdrop of metallic sounds and honking horns. Elon Musk walked alone along the sidewalk, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his dark jacket. Although he was no stranger to crowded cities and the chaos of modern life, that evening he felt strangely detached from the world around him. He had just left an exclusive conference on artificial intelligence and was now seeking a bit of peace. As he approached a dark corner of the neighborhood, something caught his attention. A man was sitting next to an abandoned building, a cardboard sign resting on his knees. There were no tear-jerking messages or explicit pleas for help, just a few simple words: homeless veteran. Any help is appreciated. The man wasn't looking at the passers-by, nor was he holding out his hand. He simply sat there, motionless, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Elon slowed his pace. He wasn't new to the sight of homeless individuals, especially in a city like New York, but there was something about this man that struck him deeply. Maybe it was the air of dignity he seemed to exude, or perhaps it was the way he accepted his situation without any sign of desperation. After a moment of hesitation, Musk approached. "Hi," he said gently. "Mind if I sit here?" The man looked up, surprised by the request. For a moment, he seemed uncertain about how to respond, then gave a slight nod. "It's a public sidewalk," he finally said in a hoarse voice. Elon sat down beside him, keeping some distance to avoid coming across as intrusive. For a few seconds, they both sat in silence, watching the stream of people moving past without stopping. Then Musk broke the silence. "How long have you been here?" The man shrugged, as if the question no longer held any meaning for him. "Long enough," he replied curtly. "And you? What are you doing here at this hour?" Elon smiled faintly. "I just left a conference. Walking helps me clear my head." He paused briefly, then added, "What's your name?" The man hesitated for a moment, as if he wasn't used to hearing that question. "Jack," he finally said. "And you?" "Elon," Musk replied, offering no further explanation. There was no sign of recognition on Jack's face, and Elon liked that. For once, he wasn't being treated as a celebrity or a famous businessman, but simply as another person. Jack turned his gaze back to the street in front of him, his face expressionless. After a moment of silence, he was the one to speak. "It's not often someone stops to talk to me." "I imagine not," Elon admitted. "But you seem like you have a story to tell." Jack gave a brief, bitter smile. "Everyone does." "Don't they?" "Yes, they do," Elon said. "But yours interests me." For a moment, Jack seemed to think it over, then ran a hand through his grey, messy hair. "Former Marine," he began. "I served for over 20 years. I did my duty. And when I came back, well, things didn't turn out the way I thought they would." He paused, as if those memories were too heavy to share all at once. "Things went from bad to worse. I lost everything: my job, my family, my home. And now here I am." Elon nodded slowly, letting the weight of those words settle in the cold evening air. "That must have been tough," he said finally, choosing his words carefully. "More than you can imagine," Jack admitted. "But I'm not the only one. There are so many people out here like me. We've become invisible, forgotten." Elon remained silent, reflecting on those words. For a moment, the city's constant hum seemed to fade, leaving only Jack's voice and the gravity of his story. "If you could change one thing," Elon asked after a while, "what would it be? If you had a chance, a real shot at starting over?" Jack looked at him, as though trying to determine whether the question was genuine or just another way of offering false hope. "I don't know," he finally replied. "It's been a long time since anyone asked me what I really want." "Imagine you could do anything," Elon pressed. "What would you need to take back your life?" For a moment, Jack seemed lost in thought. Then, with a more resolute tone, he said, "A job. A place where I can feel useful again. I've always loved fixing things. Cars, motorcycles. I used to be good at it. If I had a shop, some tools, maybe I could do something worthwhile. But those are just fantasies. Out here, fantasies don't mean a damn thing. Elon nodded slowly, as if mentally noting every word. And what if it wasn't just a fantasy? He asked. What if you really had that chance? Jack looked at him with a mixture of disbelief and suspicion. Why do you care? He asked, his tone betraying his wariness. Because I can, Elon replied simply. And because maybe it's time for someone to make a difference. Jack lowered his gaze, reflecting on Elon's words. It was hard for him to believe that someone could truly be interested in helping him. He had seen too many broken promises, heard too many empty words that led nowhere. And yet, something in Musk's tone compelled him to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know, Jack admitted finally, shaking his head slightly. I don't even know where to start. Jack, Musk said calmly, I'm not saying it's easy. But if you're really willing to try, we can figure this out together. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and began typing something. Jack watched him in silence, unsure of what to expect. After a few minutes, Elon looked up. I know a center that can offer you temporary housing. It's nothing fancy, but it's a start. A warm place, a bed, and 3 meals a day. What do you think? Jack stayed still, his heart pounding faster. He wasn't used to hearing about real, concrete help. Every fiber of his being told him to refuse, to not trust. But there was a part of him, the part that hadn't completely given up yet, that wanted to believe. All right, he said finally, his voice low. I'll give it a shot. Elon nodded, satisfied. Good. But it doesn't end there. You said you'd like to get back to fixing things, right? Jack looked at him for a moment, as if trying to figure out where he was going with this. Yeah, he replied slowly. But I don't have the tools or the space to do it. We'll figure that out, Musk said with a faint smile. First, let's get you somewhere safe. Then we'll take care of the rest. The ride to the center was short but filled with silence and heavy thoughts. Jack felt torn between hope and the fear of being let down once again. When they arrived at the modest yet welcoming building, Elon motioned for him to go inside. There's someone in there who will help you get settled, Elon said. I'll stay in touch. If you need anything, call me. Jack looked at him with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Why are you doing this? He asked finally. Elon gave a slight smile. Because I can. And because I believe everyone deserves a second chance. With those words, they said their goodbyes. Jack walked into the center while Elon stood outside, watching him disappear inside. He knew this journey was just beginning, but he felt that, this time, something good might actually come of it. 2 weeks later, Jack stood in front of an old shed on the outskirts of the city. The weathered brick walls and rusted metal roof didn't look particularly promising, but to him, they represented something far greater. This was the starting point of a new beginning. Elon kept his word, he murmured to himself, staring at the large iron door that creaked as it swung open. Inside, the shed was empty, but there was enough space to set up a small workshop. At the center of the room, on an old workbench, lay a set of brand new tools, still wrapped in their packaging. Jack approached slowly, almost cautiously. He ran his hand over the surface of the workbench, feeling the roughness of the wood beneath his fingers. It had been so long since he'd last had the chance to work with his hands, to feel useful again. As he stood lost in thought, a familiar voice broke the silence. So, what do you think? Jack turned around abruptly to see Elon walking in with his usual calm demeanor, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. It's not much, Musk added, glancing around, but it's a start. It's more than I could have hoped for, Jack admitted, a sincere smile spreading across his face. Thank you. Elon nodded. You don't need to thank me. You said you wanted a chance, and I just made sure you got one. Now it's all up to you. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of those words. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, he felt motivated, ready to fight for something. In the days that followed, Jack poured himself into setting up the workshop. He cleaned the shed, organized the tools, and started spreading the word around the neighborhood. The first week passed without much happening, but then something occurred that changed everything. One afternoon, as Jack was finishing up repairs on an old air compressor, a man appeared at the workshop door. He was wearing a grease-stained jumpsuit and holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Are you Jack?" the man asked, stepping inside. "Yes, that's me," Jack replied, wiping his hands on a rag. "What can I do for you?" "I heard you fix motorcycles," the man said, glancing at the workbench. "I've got an old Harley that won't start anymore. Think you can take a look?" Jack smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped for. "Bring it in, and I'll see what I can do." The next day, the man returned with the motorcycle loaded onto a truck. Jack immediately got to work, dismantling the engine piece by piece and carefully inspecting every component. It took him 2 full days of labor, but in the end, he got it running again. When he started the engine and heard the familiar roar filling the workshop, a wave of emotion washed over him. He was back. Finally, after years of hardship, he felt alive again. Jack smiled, but this time, there was something different about his smile. It wasn't the bitter smile of a man resigned to defeat, but the smile of someone who had found his purpose again. In the days that followed, Jack's workshop slowly began to gain attention. His first clients came through word of mouth and the contacts Elon had suggested. Each day brought new challenges, but also small victories. Jack found himself immersed in a fast-paced work rhythm, but unlike the struggles of his past, this time he felt like he had a purpose. One evening, as he was finishing repairs on an old car engine, he received an unexpected visit. Elon walked into the workshop, taking in the scene with a satisfied smile. "Looks like things are going well," he said. Jack removed his gloves and walked over, wiping his hands on an old rag. "I can't complain," he replied with a genuine smile. "It's going better than I could have ever imagined. And it's all thanks to you." Elon shrugged. "I just gave you a little help. You did the rest." In the days that followed, word about Jack's workshop continued to spread. More and more people came in to get their cars and motorcycles repaired, drawn by Jack's professionalism and honesty. The story of a veteran who had found a second chance through his passion began to circulate around the neighborhood, eventually catching the attention of a local journalist. One morning, as Jack was working on an old Harley, he heard a knock at the workshop door. "Jack, right?" asked a man in his 40s, holding a pen and a notebook. "My name's Mark, and I write for the neighborhood paper. I've heard about your story and would like to write an article about you." Jack was silent for a moment, surprised by the request. "I'm not sure my story's all that interesting," he said modestly. "I've just tried to do my best." "That's exactly what makes it special," the journalist replied. "Not many people manage to overcome the challenges you've faced. And what you're doing here is having a big impact on the community." A few days later, the article was published, featuring a large photo of Jack standing by his workbench under the headline, "From the Streets to the Workshop, A Veteran's Rebirth." The story spread throughout the city, bringing even more attention to Jack's business. Several people, including local entrepreneurs, offered to support him with donations of tools and materials. When Elon heard about the article, he decided to visit Jack in person. "I read the paper," he said as he walked into the workshop. "Looks like you're becoming a bit of a celebrity." Jack laughed, shaking his head. "A celebrity? Let's not go that far. But I have to admit, the article brought a lot of attention. I've even had some offers for collaborations." "Good," Elon said, looking around with pride at what had started with a simple conversation on the sidewalk. "That's what happens when you put your heart into what you do. People notice." Jack paused for a moment, then said with determination, "I've realized something, Elon. I want to give back what I've received. I want to offer free training to young people who want to learn a trade and keep helping other veterans who are struggling." Elon looked at him with admiration. "You know, when I first saw you that night, I never imagined you'd come this far. But now I see it was all you. You had the courage to not give up and to try one more time." Jack smiled. It wasn't easy, but I've learned that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to believe in you to change everything. The following months were a whirlwind of positive changes. Jack's workshop not only continued to thrive, but also became a true gathering place for the community. Young people eager to learn a trade showed up every day, and Jack, with patience and dedication, began teaching them. Despite his success, Jack never forgot where he came from. He continued offering free repairs to veterans and collaborating with various local organizations to help those in need. His dream of giving back was slowly taking shape, one step at a time. One day, as he was closing the workshop, he got a call from Elon. "Got a minute?" Musk asked, his tone relaxed, like someone wrapping up a long day. "Always," Jack replied with a smile. "I was just thinking about how it all started," Elon said. "From a simple conversation on the sidewalk to this. You've done something incredible, Jack. Not everyone would have had your determination." Jack was silent for a moment, reflecting on those words. Then he replied calmly, "It wasn't just me. You saw something in me when I didn't believe in myself anymore. You gave me a chance, and sometimes that's all someone needs." "Yeah," Elon agreed. "But you were the one who took it. Never forget that." That evening, Jack locked up the workshop with a profound sense of gratitude. It wasn't just about having a successful business or becoming a role model for the community. It was about reclaiming his life and making a difference for others. Jack's story is a testament to the power of second chances. In a world that often seems indifferent, a small gesture can spark hope. Jack had lost everything, but with the help of someone who believed in him and his own inner strength, he managed to rise from the depths and transform his life. This story reminds us that no one is truly invisible and that sometimes, all it takes is stopping to listen to change someone's destiny. Each of us can be that person willing to lend a hand, to offer a second chance. So next time you see someone in need, remember Jack. Remember that a small act can make a big difference, and that behind every face is a story worth hearing. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications to stay updated and never miss more stories like this one. Share your thoughts in the comments or tell us about a personal experience that inspired you. Share this message with your friends and family. One word or gesture can change a life. Remember, there's always someone out there waiting to be seen, and you can make a difference.